So tonight I want to share with you how you can replace your income from property in 5 easy steps. Except that it's actually 6 easy steps because I realised I missed out a step when I was devising the webinar. So that was clever, wasn't it? So I want to give you loads of content tonight. I want to give you lots of value. I want to help you to think through where you are now, where you want to be, and how to get there. Because it sometimes feels like you're going to climb a mountain, doesn't it? If you start off thinking, I really want to get out of my job. Maybe you want to create another stream of income for your family. Maybe it's your pension you're concerned about. And all of those thoughts go through your mind, but yet you're thinking, how do I do it? So tonight is all about how you reverse engineer that process to make it happen. And actually what I'm going to share with you tonight relates not just to HMOs. Any property strategy can use these same steps. So if you thought I'm just going to bleat on about HMOs, well, I'm not. I will tell you about HMOs because that is my hot topic and I very much believe in HMOs. But if you're thinking about other strategies tonight, what I'm going to share with you tonight will really help you with other strategies too. The other thing is I've got some lovely bonuses that if you stay till the end of the webinar, you will get absolutely free. And I know who's stayed till the end of the webinar because my magic elves behind the scene will tell me if you've stayed on. And I can also see if you're actually listening as well or active. So if it gets boring, let me know and we'll go up a gear, we'll change gear, we'll do a Q&A. And I'd like to do a Q&A at the end as well. And make sure that we make the most of this because this is your precious Sunday evening. So I don't want to waste time any more than you do. So as Henry VIII once said, I won't keep you long. He said that to his wives. Okay, right, I will stop with the terrible jokes and I will get on with the programme. So welcome everybody, great to have you here this evening, and as you can see the topic is how to replace your income from property in 5 easy steps. So hopefully you can see the welcome screen, and that's just to say hi to everybody who's currently attending. And I know it's lovely to see some of you who I haven't seen for a while actually, so great that you can join me. Thank you so much for being here this evening. So this is a slide of me and my husband Andy. We live in South Cheshire and this is our investing area, and I'll tell you a little bit more about where we invest in a moment. We love having the freedom to do what we choose to do with our time, and we have done a lot more exercise, and I ran the London Marathon earlier this year and I'm running the Chester Marathon in a couple of weeks' time. Yes, it's a bit scary, but the point is we can do this because we have the time, which we didn't have when we were in full-time jobs. These are my 4 boys, the terrible 4 as they are known, and of course they keep me busy, although my 2 eldest boys have left home now, so they're independent adults. My middle boy is at university, Luke, and the youngest has just started secondary school, so how time flies. And you can see from this slide, you know, I was pretty good at reproducing children. That was never a problem. But what I wasn't so good at doing was reproducing income. And I found myself in a position a few years ago where I was a very busy mum of 4. I had lots of demands made on me and I was in a good job, but yet I felt tremendous pressure all the time, having to deliver and having to work incredibly hard. And I wonder if for some of you that's your situation too. And I'd like to find out a bit more about that in a moment. But I would like to just introduce to you Ian McBain, who is also on the call this evening. And Ian, would you like to say hello to everybody?
I would certainly like that, Wendy. Yes, good evening everyone. I hope everyone is well and you can hear me okay. I am sitting at home in Southend-on-Sea, not in Scotland as you're maybe thinking, but from the accent. So delighted to join Wendy officially as our business partner early this year. So we're having a great time, Wendy, aren't we, working together?
Absolutely, it's been fab. I've loved every minute of it, Ian. And I'm really delighted that Ian could join us this evening because, you know, this is the power of webinars, isn't it? You can join people from across the world if needs be. Exactly. But it's great to have you on the line, Ian, because you'll be able to answer some questions later on as well and chat to people about how they can get going with their particular aspirational plan this evening. So thanks
Sure.
ever so much. Thanks for being
No,
here, Ian. I'm just going to mute you for the time being, if that's okay.
of course, no problem.
Wouldn't that be wonderful if you could do that in real life? No, not really. I'm only joking. I'm only joking. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Ian, for being here. And he's got lots of experience to share with us. So a little bit about myself. Some of you might know that I have a number of different businesses. Best Nest is my portfolio. That's how it started. We then set up a lettings agency called Best Nest Lets. And we now help other investors money from property, make money from property and from investing, and it's called Best Nest Egg. Bit of a clever turn of phrase there. I hope you like that one. And I also have a business helping other people to achieve financial freedom through HMOs in particular, and it's called the Ultimate HMO Success System. And I know that some of you are part of our Facebook group, so lovely to have you here tonight. And I know that for some of you, you have come across the Ultimate HMO Success System. You've downloaded some materials, or you've joined in other webinars, or you might have been to one of our training days. So thank you so much for your participants here tonight, and thank you very much for your support. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we invest in Crewe and Stoke-on-Trent, which I think if you're from the southeast, it perhaps feels like it's a really, really long way away, doesn't it? It kind of feels like, you know, we're miles away from you. Actually, you know, because Crewe's a mainline train station, it takes about an hour and a half to get from Crewe to Euston, which is amazing, isn't it? So I actually often find myself in London. I was actually in London the other day speaking about property, and it really is not too far away. So although we might sound, you know, like we're in the back of beyond, we have a need, just as any other area of the UK has, for good quality rental property. And there is often a desire and a need from tenants to have affordable rental property. So we found that in our area, HMOs work very well. And later on, I'm going to share with you how you can look at your area, how you can find an area that works for you for HMOs. I've since starting my business a few years ago and writing a lot about HMOs and analysing the business, really getting to grips with how HMOs work. I've written a lot. I've been featured in various different industry magazines. You might have seen some of my articles. We've been in the Sunday Telegraph. I've been on a few BBC programmes as well. And we were runners-up in the Landlord and Letting Awards in 2017, which was great. I've written 2 books about HMOs, 101 Essential Tips for Running a Professional HMO, which was my first book in 2015. And then just a few months ago, I released my second book, which is a bigger, much bigger expansion on the first book. And it goes into much more depth about property, about the property cycle, about where we are now, and some of my views, I think, about the private rental sector. So both of those are on Amazon, and I'm sure that some of you have benefited from possibly some free offers that we've been running this year. So if you're one of those who's received your book in the post, just paying postage and packing, good on you. That's brilliant. So what do I think are 3 key problems that people face today? So I believe that there are 3 key problems that we're all actually looking to solve. And I think these 3 key problems are the 3 reasons why most people start to invest in property. The first one is time. Now, would you agree with me that there is only limited time, that you only have limited time? If you would agree with that statement, put Y in the chat panel or just raise your hand. Great, excellent, thank you. Some of you might be on your phone, so it might not be easy to use the chat panel. I understand that. But I think you would agree that time is a resource that we cannot make any more of. It goes without saying, doesn't it? We all only have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. We don't know how long we have on Earth, but we also find that our lives are very restricted because of the time that is taken to perhaps commute to work, perhaps be at work, bring work home, stay late, do overtime. And we get to a point in our lives where we find that actually work has become really It overtakes everything. And this is a major reason, I believe, why a lot of people start, particularly perhaps in their 30s and slightly older, to look at different ways of creating income so they don't have to swap their time for money. And of course, that brings us on to the second problem, which is money. We're not brought up, we're not taught, are we, as children or as young people, to learn how to raise money. We're not taught how the money system works. All that we're taught is that we get money from a bank. That's who's in charge of the banking system and the monetary system. But yet we're not taught how to invest. We're not taught how to grow money. We're not taught how to leverage money. And then the third problem is knowledge as to how to do this, and also the mindset to do this. Because I think you would agree that to be an investor takes a bit of a different mindset from being somebody who's just in a job. You know, if you're going to become an investor, you have to take some risks. You have to do something other people would probably not want to do. You have to be prepared to go out of your comfort zone. You have to do things that other people won't do. Now, that can cause problems because you might find that you get grief from your friends and family for doing this. You might find that you have opposition from perhaps people at work. You might find that people will try and persuade you not to do this because they think it's not good for you, and because maybe they believe that you're taking too many risks. Any of you that are already in property, I wonder if you've had that situation. Have you had that situation where, you know, you've had opposition from other people? Just put up your hand or put Y in the chat panel if that's been you. If you've had people who've kind of doubted your plan to do this and undermined you a little bit. Yeah, okay, so there's a few people there putting up their hands and saying, yeah, this has happened to them. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it probably will at some point. So just be prepared for it. But that's why I believe that the three solutions are, first of all, to have a system. You see, I think if you're lacking time, if time is an issue for you, and for many people it is when they start investing, what you need is to follow a blueprint, a system, a plan. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't try and make it all up on your own. Find somebody who's done it and copy them. It's like anything in life. If there's a recipe to do it, why make it up? Try and follow the recipe first. I'm sure you could improve on that recipe, but that will save you a huge amount of time. The second area, which is perhaps lacking in money, well, one of the things that you will learn as you start to invest in property is how to raise money from other people. And this is one of the amazing things about property investing, is that you don't have to use your own money to do it. And in fact, over the last 3.5 years, I've raised more than £4 million from other people to invest in property with. Now, that is a big figure, isn't it? I think you'd agree that's a large amount of money to raise from other people. But it's quite possible. And I've got friends who are raising even more money than that, £40,000, £50,000. I know a lot of people who are raising finance for their property problems, I suppose you could say. Ian, who's on the panel tonight, he has raised hundreds of thousands of pounds from individual investors. And he's got some great stories that he can share with you later on about that. So these three key problems really lead to one result. And that one result is that we're in the rat race, going round and round on that hamster wheel, not able to get off because we have a mortgage, we have outgoings, we have commitments, we've got bills that we have to pay. We're swapping our time for money the whole time, and it means that we feel trapped. And for many people who are in work today, who are in a job, they're finding that this is exactly how they feel. And even if they love their job and they know that their job is doing good to other people, and maybe they're in a job that is actually a really fulfilling job in terms of what it does, but the ultimate aim is that they don't feel that their life is as fulfilling or as full as it could be. Can you relate to that? I wonder if that's where you find yourself today. Are you on the webinar because you want to replace your income from property? Do you want to get out of your job? Maybe what you want is to create a pension. It could be then actually you want to carry on working, but you know you're not going to have a great pension when you retire. Maybe you want to create a legacy for your children. That was the reason I started, because I wanted to create something for my boys to hand on to them. So wherever you find yourself, and a few people again written in the chat panel, they can relate to that. They can relate to that feeling of feeling trapped and not really knowing how to escape. Financial freedom is an amazing thing when you achieve it. And I believe that anybody could achieve financial freedom if they put their mind to it and if they take the right steps. And tonight is all about what are those steps for you to achieve financial freedom. And there will be times when this is hard. There will be times when this will require you to step out of your comfort zone, do something different, and do something that other people might think you're completely crazy for doing, but it is worth it. And one of the things that I often say to people who work with me is create a board. You know, you might have heard these, a vision board that actually puts on, you know, in a picture format or in word format, why this is important to you. Because it's very easy to get lost on the journey. And I've seen people get lost on the journey to financial freedom because they're not clear what they're trying to achieve. For me and my family, what we love doing is traveling. We love having time. And we recently, over the last couple of years, we bought a motorhome. I know it's a bit of a middle-aged fantasy. Well, that's where I am now, middle-aged, so I can have my fantasy. But Andy and I decided we wanted to buy a motorhome and travel around Europe and spend some time with our family, particularly with Tom, who's our youngest. And there we are in St. Peter's Square in Venice. And I think the top one, that's another picture in Venice. We went to Sweden and Denmark and Germany this year. And we've travelled to a lot of places. And we couldn't do that if we each had jobs, because we would have had to take far more time off than we would have been able to. So for us, the beauty of financial freedom, where our mortgage is paid for, all our bills are paid for, and we have access to travel with, means that we can do what we love to do. What would you love to do that you can't currently do? What would you love to do that you can't currently do? Can you write it in the chat panel? I'd love to know what it is that motivates you to be here this evening and what you would love to be able to do that you can't currently do in your current situation. And while you're doing that, I'm going to have a quick sip of water. Ian, can I ask you, what was it that motivated you to determine that you would do this? Oh, I think you're muted, Ian. You might need to unmute yourself. I think Ian's gone. Is Ian still there? So Rachel, travel, rest, sports. Sounds good to me. Love it. Lie in. Oh, yes, not have to get up. Oh, 5:45. That's painful. Gemma, provide opportunities for children and extra spends for grandparents. Lovely. Excellent. Spend quality time enjoying life before you get too old. Yes, absolutely. I can completely relate to those things. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I know a lot of people on webinars like this will talk about having fast cars and expensive watches and expensive holidays, or you know, spending a lot of money. And to a certain extent, you know, I can understand that. If that's your thing, that's great. There's no problem with that. If you want a new car, put that on your vision board. But for me, it's actually not that's the spend. For me, I'm not particularly motivated by that stuff. What I really like is having time. What I really like is being able to do my own thing, and so that I can do lots of other things as well. And for me, that's what really motivates me. But whatever it is, the key is freedom. The key is financial freedom, because once you've achieved financial freedom, you can do whatever you like. If you want to buy a Ferrari, you can go and get a Ferrari. If you want to have a suite of expensive watches, you can do that. If you want to buy yourself a fancy diamond ring, you can do that, because property gives you that freedom. When I started, so this was a few years ago, I had a few buy-to-lets. Now, I like buy-to-lets. It's a great strategy, and we're going to talk tonight a little bit about strategy and what your strategy could be. But what I found was that with a few single buy-to-lets, I wasn't making that much money. I was maybe making a few £100s a month. And the problem was that didn't then create any financial freedom for me. It was nice extra cash, but it didn't really help me. I was also scared because I didn't know how to. And I would definitely say that HMOs are a little bit more of an advanced strategy, and there are some pitfalls for the unwary. So I was aware of that, and I didn't know what to do. And the third problem I had was I was slow because I wasn't educated, and I didn't know how to turn a normal house into an HMO. So I had to get education. I had to be mentored. I spent a lot of money on my own education in property to enable myself and my business to grow. Now, you might have some experience already. You might have some buy-to-lets. Now, that is a brilliant foundation for your next step if you decide to go into HMOs. And I certainly know that from speaking to lots of people in the business, lots of people in this environment, that having a bit of education and a bit of knowledge already does help. But it doesn't mean if you haven't got that, you can't do this. So don't feel, oh, I haven't got any experience in property, I don't own any property, that you can't do HMOs. It all comes down to where you start. I was educated. In fact, this is me getting my master's degree a few years ago. I was well educated traditionally, but what I didn't have was education to do with property and investing. And it goes back to that thing of school doesn't teach us how to be an investor. And that was what I found, was that I was now entering a different world, and I needed to know different ideas, and I needed to know how to apply that. So why property? Why is it that property can be so effective? Well, let's just think about your current situation. So you've got income from your job, fantastic. But then you've got outgoings that come out from that money every month, mortgage, bills, car payment, etc. And what does this leave you with? Well, it leaves you with no time, no money, and the feeling of probably being trapped. And of course, that is a really less than ideal position to be in. So this is a kind of diagram that explains how what this guy calls poor people, the situation that we often find ourselves in. So we have basic goods, and maybe the income from our job is meeting the basic outgoings. But when it comes to having a comfortable life or a luxurious life, not only do we not have the money to do that, we don't know how to make the money to be able to create a comfortable lifestyle or a luxury lifestyle. So property, well, first of all, your income, because it's coming from property, it's coming from assets, is not related to your time. So this is a really key area, and I call it residual income. Some people call it passive income. I think that underestimates some of the work you have to do. But suffice it to say that the income you can make from property is much, much greater for 1 hour of your time than you can make from 1 hour if you swap it for time in a job, even if you're a very well-paid specialist. And the benefit of this is that your outgoings, your mortgage and your bills, which haven't changed, get paid by your income from your assets. So therefore, that gives you time. It also gives you money, because as we know, time is money. I'm sure you would agree that time is money. And if you have time, you can make more money. And where does this lead? Well, freedom. And, it's very simple, but it's not something that everybody grasps. So here's another diagram that shows the income of, if you like, a middle-class person. So somebody who's on that journey to becoming financially free, or somebody who has income from other assets. So you can see here that this is a person who's still in their job. They've still got their income from their job. And with the passive income that they are gleaning from assets, this means that actually this person has turned from being a poor person to being a rich person, because they now can afford the luxury and the comfort of extras that they wouldn't have been able to afford just from their job. But what about if we get rid of that middle bit? So what about if we decide we're going to actually take the leap when the time is right, just to relying on the passive income we have from our assets, which is what me and Andy, my husband, we did about 4 years ago. We had enough income from our assets to make that leap from being full-time employees to being full-time in property, and now part-time in property. Now, this is a great lifestyle. This is the lifestyle of somebody who can grow their passive income because they know how to do that, who can afford luxuries and a comfortable standard of life, and where all your basic goods and needs are met. But most people do not live this lifestyle, do they? Most people have income from their job and they rely on that. And they spend 40 years of their life working, slogging it out to make it happen. And then they retire. And then they might look back on their life and wish that they'd done something different. And that might be you. That was me a few years ago, where I kind of came to that realization of thinking, I need to do something different. I need to change what I'm doing, because otherwise I'm going to spend the next 20 years in what was a worthwhile job. I was a teacher in higher education. It was definitely worthwhile, although the industry has changed. Higher education has changed a lot since I was there. And so it wasn't as if I didn't have meaning and value in my job, but I just didn't want a boss. I didn't want a boss. I wanted to be able to work for myself. I wanted to be self-employed. I wanted to be able to get up when I wanted to. I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to with my time. I'm a bit of a rebel, really. That's me all over. So why property? Why do I think that property is the key to making this happen? And let's look at some of the if you like, undeniable facts about why property can work for you and can work for anybody. Well, first of all, what we know is that the UK needs residential rental property. There's plenty of statistics to show this, and even despite Brexit, the bee looming on the horizon, what we see from the statistics from the Office for National Statistics in particular, and immigration stats, is that there's lots of people coming from across the world to come to the UK and work. Now, those people can't get a mortgage, they can't buy property of any kind to live in, they often don't have the money, and they don't have the immigration rights to be able to stay here permanently. But they need somewhere to live. Where can they live? Now, HMOs are perfect for those kinds of people, for people who come to the UK looking for somewhere to live, probably on a short to medium term basis. Maybe they don't speak English terribly well, and they need somewhere where all the bills are included. So that's one kind of tenant. We have quite a few of those kind of tenants. Second type of tenant is a tenant who just left university. They started their job, they haven't, again, got much income, they want something that's all inclusive. They make perfect HMO tenants. Third type of tenant, contractors. There are lots and lots of contractors in the UK who are moving around all the time for work. They maybe already have a home, but they're looking for somewhere else to live during the week. HMOs are perfect. They don't necessarily want to spend money on a hotel, and they also want to keep that same place so that during the weekend they could maybe pop back, and they know their stuff, their own items are kept safe. So I know that there's a big demand for residential property at the moment. The second thing is that with property, you can use other people's money to invest with. Now, that could be bank finance, so it might be mortgages, but it's also investors as well. And there again are lots and lots of investors out there who are looking for a home for their money. If you can find a deal which gives a good return on investment, which enables them to have a good yield for them from their income, you'll find that they will jump to investing with you. The third reason is that, of course, property, once you've bought it, slowly compounds over time. It grows in value. And if we were to look back at property prices over the last 10 to 15 years, even with a big crash in the middle of it, I'm sure you can see that property prices have gone up over the last 10 to 15 years. It's not necessarily fast, and I certainly wouldn't say that properties get rich quick, but it's get very rich slowly. So the sooner that you decide that you are going to make the jump and start investing, the better for your long-term wealth and future. Fourth reason is it's cash flowing. The idea about property is not that you just pay down the mortgage and you let the property grow in capital value, but you actually make some money from it every month. And this is the bit that really, I suppose, made me very excited about HMOs, because I realised that if I did an HMO, I could make so much more money than just by having a single buy-to-let property. And I'll share a couple of examples of those in a moment with you. The other reason is this, I think this is reason number 5, is that different strategies bring different results, but they also take different methods. Now, this is fine. This is why it's worth being educated, because then you know which strategy is going to suit you best. It might be that HMOs are great for you, but actually there might be another strategy that suits you better. So tonight, as I said, it's not just all about HMOs, it's also about thinking about which strategy is going to work best for you. Let me share with you a couple of my case studies, though, a couple of properties that are my properties that I converted a couple of years ago, so I can explain exactly how this works. So here we have a 2-bed terraced house. So this was a house that I bought in Crewe a few years ago. Purchase price was £78,000. It was actually in a reasonable state of repair. I think now this house would probably sell for nearly 90, so it's already gone up by £12,000 in value. We didn't spend a lot on the upgrades. Painting and decorating, we put in some new partition walls. I put in some built-in wardrobes, which was really good to maximise the space. We kept the kitchen as it was, and we kept the bathroom. And it's only got 4 shared rooms, only 4 rooms. And the total income from that property is about £1,200. Actually, those rents aren't quite right. I don't think they quite add up to £1,200. But I was looking at the figures before I came on the webinar tonight, because I want to give you accurate figures. I don't want to give you figures that are, inaccurate. So our current income from this property is about £1,200. Our outgoings, the mortgage is £216 a month, because of course interest rates are very low at the moment. So that's another reason why property is good. And our running costs are about £350. So in total, we make about £634 a month on that particular property. Yes, it needs to be fully let in order for us to make that kind of profit. But you can see, can't you, that even with one room not being filled, we're still covering all our costs. We're still, and in fact, we're still making some profit. It might not be massive, but we're still making some profit. Now, when I realised this, I suddenly thought, you know what, why am I doing single buy-to-lets? Because I don't need many of these, and I've got my income covered. So this 4-bed HMO was my very first HMO, and it made me realise that I wanted to go bigger. And if you've ever had that feeling where you think, you know what, I really like this and I want to do more. Have you ever had that feeling? And you're thinking, oh, I can feel myself getting excited about this. I can feel myself going, yes, I want to do this. That is how I felt after I finished this HMO. So this was my next property. This was a 7-bed HMO. Now, this is obviously nearly double in size. It was still a terraced house, but it was much, much bigger. And here are some of the figures. So we purchased this for £93,000. We spent a lot more on the refurb. But the income, look at that income, £2,650 a month. Our outgoings, the mortgage is £414 a month. Running costs are about £620, so obviously significantly more than the 4-bed, which you would expect because there's obviously 7 people living there. But we make an average of about £1,600 a month on that particular property. So the question is, how many of those do you need? For a lot of people, 2 properties like that, 14 rooms, would replace their income. I think the average income in the UK at the moment is about £28,000. So I think probably 1.5 of these houses would actually cover the income of the average person in the UK. Even if this doesn't cover your income, I suspect it will go a long way towards fulfilling some of your dreams and making some of those real. And here's a handful of some more. So you know I'm pretty good at having children. I've got 4 boys. I can only do the boy model. I'm afraid the girl model has completely escaped me, but I can do the boy model pretty well. And I sort of adopted the same idea. I thought, I know, I'll just reproduce my HMOs in the same way I've reproduced my children. So what I did was I literally took a cookie cutter approach and I rinsed and repeated it time and time again. What happened was I ran out of money, though. After that second HMO that I've just shown you, the 7-bed, I ran completely out of my own money to invest with. And I was very, very stuck. I didn't know how to move forward. And it was only through meeting an investor that I was able to then grow my portfolio again. And that's another story for another time that I'll tell you about. But just to say that when you can create this kind of income from property, you'll find that people will become interested and they'll want to help you, they'll want to know more, and they'll want to lend you money because you can give them a great return. So how many do you need? How many do you actually need? And this is a question that I put to people because, you know, I think sometimes people think I've got to have 45 properties and that's going to be a real headache and it's going to be a real nightmare and I just don't want to do it. But what if 3 HMOs plus a couple of single lets would give you £3,500 a month income? I mean, you know, that's easy. That is really not a challenge to do that. You could do that and have a great lifestyle. And a couple more, and maybe you could replace your income and you could leave your job. So how are you going to get this to work? How are you going to make this happen? Okay, so the first step in this system's first step in the plan is, number 1, you need to have a really clear aim. So where do you want to get to by when? Now on this slide, you can see that I have I've got a special personal budget, and this is a spreadsheet that you will get as a free bonus for attending the webinar. You get this at the end of the webinar, and this is something that I do with everybody who works with me. So most people pay a lot of money to have these tools, but you, ladies and gents, because you're here tonight, you will get this absolutely free by staying on till the end. So thank you very much for continuing to listen. Please put your questions in the chat panel as well. If as we go through you've got other questions that you want to ask me. But one of the mistakes that I see a lot of people making is they lack clarity. And if you lack clarity, you will not know whether you're getting to the aim, whether you're reaching your goal and you're reaching it in a timely fashion. So clarity is key. And the first step to clarity is actually knowing how much money you need every month in order to give in your notice. If you're not sure what your actual figure is every month that you need, then how are you going to make that your aim? So this is the first step, is to do a proper budget, do a proper family budget. And at the same time, as you start to go on this journey of replacing your income from property, think about who you need to get on board with you. So does your husband or your wife need to kind of get with the beat as well? Do they need to understand what you're trying to achieve? What about your children? It might be your parents, maybe your siblings. Get some people around you who are supporters of you, because it's very easy to be in a situation where you find that you're doing this on your own. And actually being in a community, being in a group of other people who are doing this is really vital to enable you to have that momentum to keep going. So that's the first step, is to do a really clear budget and understand exactly what you need every month and at what date you're going to try and aim to replace your income from property. The second step is S for strategy. So how are you going to get there? Now, I would recommend, if you're brand new to property or you're thinking about doing this, you probably need to do some beginning education. So webinars, reading some books, going on some discovery days. There's lots of different companies out there who will offer different types of learning and education. And I'm going to share with you how you can explore a bit further about HMOs in a moment. But it might be that you're thinking about doing a flip, for example. And that's where you buy a property and you develop it, or you you improve it, you do refurbishment, and then you sell it for a profit. That's a great strategy, particularly if you buy in the right area at the right time. However, there are some tax implications to flips which don't apply to property when you buy them and hold them. It's a different strategy. You might decide you want to do development, so that's where you're buying a piece of land, or you might buy a house that has a plot of land to the side of it, and you might decide you want to build from scratch and then sell the house. Again, there are some great case studies of people who are doing this, experts in it. I'm not an expert in that, but I know people can make really great money from it. Manoj, let me just turn to your question that you put in the chat panel. Thank you for that. Yes, most of our HMOs are on a commercial mortgage, and we have lots of different mortgage providers. So we've got mortgages at Shawbrook, Precise, Lloyds, Aldermore. I think that's it, actually, those four. The multiplier's different. Generally, we're getting about 7.5 to 8 times the income on those properties for the multiplier. However, what does differ is how much money they take off in terms of the calculation for running costs. It's about 15%. We can come to that a little bit later on. You're welcome. Thank you. So on the slide there, you can see there's lots of different types of property strategy. And what I want to talk to you tonight a little bit about is HMOs, but bear in mind that, of course, you might decide to do serviced accommodation or rent-to-rent or single buy-to-let. Any of those strategies can get you to financial freedom. What I know best is how to get financial freedom from HMOs, because I believe that just with a handful of HMOs, you can get to the point of replacing your income. And that was the key for me, to replace my income. So why do I think HMOs are great? Well, it doesn't really matter how much education or experience you have. You can start with very little knowledge and learn. It's not a strategy that requires you to have a construction degree, but it does help if you know something about construction. There's lots of financing available for HMOs. Again, I would recommend that you have a mortgage consultant, a mortgage advisor who can help you through, because there are lots of different products available, and making sure that you're ready to access those products would be crucial. You can get fast results from HMOs. Making £1,000 per property per month is not an unreasonable target. And in fact, if you are doing HMOs in that's got, say, 5 or 6 bedrooms or more, that's exactly what I'd be aiming for. It's about that kind of level of profit. You own the property and you benefit from capital growth and income. So with some of the other strategies, for example, like rent to rent, you're not actually owning the property. Now that can be a very good bolt-on strategy for HMOs. It can give you cash flow. But I also love the idea about buying something and holding it for the long term. And you can also diversify. So if you decide that you want to go into rent-to-rent or serviced accommodation or another strategy, you can still do that. The point, though, is that with HMOs, just a few of them, you can replace your income, and therefore you have your time back, and that means that you can actually do any other strategy that you then later choose to do. However, I must be honest with you and say there are some drawbacks too. It definitely helps to have some experience already, or certainly to already own some property. Particularly for the financial side, it can take longer to finance projects if you don't own a property or have any other buy-to-let experience. It's not impossible, I've seen it done, but you just need to be patient with it, and you need to understand what you can do to prepare yourself to make sure you're in the best possible place for achieving that finance. Often, the project will cost more than a buy-to-let project. So having the cash to be able to invest into that property may take some preparation. It's definitely a more advanced strategy than buy-to-lets. It may seem like all you're doing is renting to 5 people rather than 1, but usually you'll also be responsible for all the bills. So it's just worth understanding what are your responsibilities. The management can be higher in terms of cost and time. And of course, there are regulations and licensing traps for the unwary and the uneducated. So unlike single buy-to-lets, which are, of course, there is still a heap of legislation. Where wouldn't there be a heap of legislation that surrounds buy-to-let property, but HMOs are a little bit more advanced, and you need to understand what those traps are so that you don't fall into them. So what I'd like to just share with you is that if you are thinking about this strategy and you know you need to get educated, to let you know that Ian and I are running an event in Crewe next Saturday. So this coming Saturday, actually, in 6 days' time, and in Southend-on-Sea on the 12th of October. So Crewe is the 28th of September, Southend is the 12th of October. Now, I think actually I've just looked, Ian, and I think we have sold out the 12th of October.
I think right? It is, Wendy. It is, yeah.
Yeah. Now, have we put in another date for that event to rerun that again?
I can get you if you bear with me.
Yeah. Okay. Literally just in the last 24 hours, I think we've had the last place sell out on the Southend event, but we do still have
the 26th, Wendy.
26th of October.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we've got the 26th for Southend now. I'll just quickly change that on the slide. And we have the 28th of September for Crewe. So I'll just quickly tell you what is included on that tour. There's a live HMO tour. We'll explain the strategy in more depth. So I'm going to go through it today briefly, but if you want to know the detail, you'll have to come along and meet me and Ian in person. You get loads of questions answered, and some of you have already emailed me your questions tonight, which is brilliant. So I'll go through those a little bit later on. But we'll go into more detail when you spend the day with us. We'll also share with you some real case studies. So what we can do is we can look at where you're investing and find the right model of HMO that's going to work in your area. And we can do some, deep down drills into your particular area and figure out what's going to work for you. And we'll also help you to take action on your next steps. So following the day, where does that lead? How's that going to help you, and how can you then implement what you've learned on the day? So, oh yes, there we are. I just wanted to do a very quick screenshot of Crewe to London, because sometimes people say to me, oh, I can't go to Crewe. Oh, it's so long, it's so far away, and it's too expensive. Well, look, this is a screenshot I took literally about an hour ago. This is from the train line. Can you see there are tickets available next Saturday? You could get to Crewe for 8:37. Or 8:10 actually. It's an hour and a half train. The fast train is 1 hour 34 minutes and it's £28. So don't tell me you can't come. You can be there. We actually only have 4 spaces left on the Crewe event next Saturday though. So if you are going to come along to Crewe, we'd love to see you. But you'll have to book probably tonight, because I think those places will sell out before next Saturday. And I know that some of you on the webinar are coming next Saturday, so it will be wonderful to see you there, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you. But I know sometimes people think, oh, Crewe's at the back of Beyond, but it's not. You can see it's very, very accessible. So the day is called Get to Know HMO. It's in Crewe. It's £47 plus VAT. We do charge a small amount for it because it covers our costs. And we believe that when people pay a little bit of money to attend, they put more into the day. You'll find you want to get value out of the day because you put some value into the day. And we recognise that, we value that. And we want to give you really, really good value and good response from what you'll read, what you'll see, what you hear, and what you can experience on that particular day. Now, it's a bit of a mouthful that I've tried to shorten the URL. I'll actually put it in the chat panel as well. So if you want to go straight onto our Eventbrite page and book your place, please do. Just click on that link and you can go through, and Eventbrite will take your payment for that day. So at the moment, that's the only one we've got planned for Crewe at the moment. We may run another one in Crewe later in the year. And as I say, the Southend one has already sold out, so we put in that second date in Southend. So if you're free next Saturday, we'd love you to come. I think it's well worth taking the time out to really learn and get a deep dive if you think this is going to be the strategy that you want to use for replacing your income. Okay, so number one, let me just quickly recap. Number one was aim. So how much income per month and by when? Number two, I can go back on the slides. Strategy. So we've got aim, we've got strategy. What's number three? Okay, so number three is plan. So you need to have your aim, your strategy, but you now need to have a plan. You know what they say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Yes, sorry, that's the teacher in me coming out. Apologies, everybody. So you need to have a plan to get there, don't you? And if you have a plan, it makes it much easier to break down all the steps. It makes it much easier for you to understand exactly what you should be doing each step of the way. Hello again, I'm here. And it makes it much easier for you to know what you should be doing on a day-by-day basis. I see a lot of people who leave property training courses or do webinars and they go, well, that was great, but now what? What do I do now? So I'd like to give you another bonus. You're going to get 3 bonuses tonight. 3 free bonuses. I mean, I must be absolutely crazy, but perhaps I am. It's okay. My psychiatrist says I'm doing absolutely fine. Anyway, yes, another free bonus. So my second free bonus is a cash flow forecast. Again, it's another spreadsheet, but again, I think this is an incredibly useful tool. I've partly filled in the spreadsheet, so it's a template that you can use. And what this does is it helps reverse engineer from your deadline when you want to leave your job all the way backwards. And it shows you exactly when you need to be investing and how much money you can be making from each property until you reach your goal. So I wonder if I can bring it up actually on the screen. Yeah, let me just show you this. I'm just going to share this with you now. So here's the property cash flow template. So hopefully you can see that. Can you just, if you could just put Y in the chat panel so I know you can see that spreadsheet is now, it should be in much bigger on the screen for you. Excellent. Okay, brilliant. Okay, cool. So this is the spreadsheet, property cash flow forecast template, it's what it's called. And you can see here that the goal I've written in the top panel is to make £3,000 per month from property by December 2020. That is not a particular stretch goal, but it is a realistic goal. This is based on somebody who can do this, who can follow this strategy for maybe 8 to 10 hours a week. So it's somebody who's doing it part-time alongside probably a family and definitely a job. And it relies on the outcomes are going to be 5 properties, 2 buy-to-lets and 3 HMOs. It's as simple as that. So you can see in the left-hand column, you've got the 2 buy-to-lets, you've got the 3 HMOs. The income from those properties is then plotted in the top part of the cash flow forecast. And you can see the income being totted up along the bottom here. And then underneath that, we have the outgoings. So you can see that as there'll be some outgoings, for example, the deposit on the property, refurb costs. Again, you can play around with these figures as well, and some of the outgoings, and you need to fill this in quite on a detailed basis. And at the bottom, you will see that how your income will go up and down, and how your property income will go in and out, depending on what you have to start with. So let's say we started. I'm just going to actually just change it. So, your closing cash balance will be £7,000 according to the cash flow forecast. It's also because 2 of those properties you haven't yet refinanced. The cash flow forecast is definitely a more in-depth tool. It's something you need to get your head around if you're not used to cash flow forecasting. And I have a video on YouTube that explains how to use the cash flow forecast and goes into more depth. And I'll share that with you as well. But this is a free bonus. I wouldn't normally give this away on a webinar. Normally it's people who I work with who maybe have paid for mentoring or doing one of my training events that would get this. But I think this is really crucial, because I think when you can see what your income is likely to be if you take certain steps, it's massively helpful in you being able to then stand back and say, right, if I can achieve this goal by June, I can achieve this by September or October, and I can do this by November, I will hit my goal. And you know what that means? You can write that letter to your employer saying, thanks, boss, I don't need you anymore. How good would that feel? Okay, so you're going to get that as a bonus tonight as well. I'll just go back to the presentation. Okay, so a plan. You also need a plan to help you to get there. Now, as part of that plan, as part of that process for, if you like, reverse engineering your financial freedom goals, you'll need a blueprint for the system or the strategy that you're going to adopt. For me, it's obviously HMOs. And so I have a very simple 5-step system for HMOs, which is find it, fund it, finish it, fill it, and future-proof it. And you've probably heard about it already. So you know my 5-step system. You might decide you don't want to do HMOs, and that's fine too. But whichever strategy you're using, you need to systemize it, or you need to find someone who's got a system that you can copy and paste, that you can borrow, because this is the way to reduce your stress, to make more money, and to maximize your time. One of the programs that I sell as a separate program is the 16 Weeks to Success program. Now, this is a much more detailed action planning program for people who are committed to making money out of HMOs. And it breaks down all the steps that you need to take to find, fund, fill, finish, future-proof your property. I'm not going to be selling this tonight. This is not something I'm going to even give away tonight. I'm not going to give away this whole program because it's valuable, and it's something that we may offer on one of our HMO days. If you come to join us on one of our HMO days, we'll share with you how you can access some of these materials. But there's one bonus from the pack, the 16 Weeks to Success program pack, that I will be giving you as your third bonus tonight. And it is a very key one for enabling you to make sure you are doing what you said you were going to do as you progress through your plan. And it is I'm going to share with you a bit later on actually what it is. You can see it starred there on the screen, and I'll tell you a little bit later on what that extra bonus is I'm going to give you tonight. So it's taken from our 16 Weeks to Success program. So if you decide to join the 16 Weeks to Success program, you'll already have this, but that's great because you'll already be used to using it. You know exactly what it is. It's basically an accountability sheet, and I'll share with you a little bit later on what that accountability sheet is and how you can use it. So what's step 4 for replacing your income from property? Okay, number 4 is interrogate. What do I mean by that? What I mean is your plan realistic and possible? Because it's very easy to say, that's it, brilliant, I'm going to replace my income, I'm going to do it by January 2020. Right, okay. Now that's not impossible. I have known of people make tremendous journeys, a tremendous success very, very quickly. I've worked with a couple of people who went from having £250 a month property income to £5,200 a month property income within 8 months. I'm working with a chap at the moment who started working with me in January. He had a couple of single buy-to-lets and 1 HMO. He's massively grown his property portfolio this year with investment, and he's set to make £8,000 a month income by next January. So he's gone from about £1,500 this January 2019. By next January, it'll be about £8,000 a month income. By following these steps, by being made accountable, by having somebody who interrogates his plans. And I think that's really valuable, to have someone who could sit with you and say, that's not going to work, that will work, that will take a little bit longer, make sure you fit this in. And unless you're working with somebody who's a bit more experienced, you'll lack that ability to have your plans interrogated. Step 5 is realize the plan. So you've now got your plan, you know what deadlines you're trying to achieve, you know what the finances will be looking like. So now you need to get stuff done. So get out there and get going on the plan, take action. And then step number 6 is to evaluate. What do you need to change? So if in the last month or 3 months, you haven't achieved the goals that you set for yourself, it could be that you haven't done enough viewings on properties. You haven't spoken to enough investors. Maybe you found that you haven't done enough of your own education, so you're not quite abreast of some of the legislation, the rules. You may have fallen foul of licensing rules, for example, and that's taken longer. If it's any of those things, then what's really going to be important is that you go back, you evaluate, and you say, okay, how can I make this now work? What do I now need to do to make this to get back on track and to change it. Now, I have to say that one of the things that I've found over the years that I've been working with people is that mindset is key. If you don't have the right mindset, you don't realize that this is going to be a long-term commitment, that this is something which will change your life, but only if you can commit 100% to it, and you can get some people around you who will support you on your journey, then you'll find it tough, because it is tough, because it's something that most people don't do. So some of the things that you'll need to be mindful of is your calendar. Every week, are there some things that you can stop doing to make yourself have time for doing what's needed to build your property portfolio? Are there people that you need to connect with, some networking groups that you need to go to? Are there aspects of your lifestyle that aren't helping you in growing your property portfolio? You know, staying up too late, watching too much telly, wasting time. You know, we all do it, don't we? We all do it. But for the next 3 or 4 years, if you could commit to making this happen and try and get rid of those things that maybe are holding you back, I suspect that your growth and your achievements will be massive. So that's why this is the Aspire model. So let's just recap. Aim, A, where do I want to get to? In other words, how much income per month and by when? S is for strategy. How am I going to get there? We've covered some of those ways that you can make income from property. Which one appeals to you most? P is for plan. What do I need to do to get there? I is to interrogate that plan and interrogate it with somebody else. Sit down with somebody else and get their feedback from you. Listen to what they have to say. R is for realize the plan, make it happen, take action on your plan. You know, it's not just going to happen by putting in some figures in a lovely spreadsheet. You need to actually get out and do something. And then E is evaluate, regularly evaluate what is happening, what's working, what's not working, and what you need to change. This Aspire model is key for being able to enable you to replace your income from property in 5 easy steps. Now, at that point, I want to open up and say, has anybody got any questions or any queries or anything that isn't clear so far about that Aspire model? Anybody got anything they want to ask about it, or anything that they're unsure about how they would apply that? Okay, right, so I'm going to cover that in a moment, Makesh. Great question. How to figure out where to buy the first HMO. So there's a few parameters that you need to know about your location, and I'm going to go through those in a moment. So that's a really good question. Thank you so much for that. So it might be that you have thought to yourself, well, I really do want to buy my first HMO and I want to get started on HMOs, but I just don't know how to get going. So if that's your question, we're going to cover that in a moment. Are there any other questions? Mostly people often have questions about financing. Does anybody have any questions about financing? I'll give some time at the end, by the way, for Q&A. We'll have a few minutes at the end for questions and answers. So if you'd rather wait till then, we can do that. Okay. So, told you about the 5-step system. This is what I call my blueprint system, because frankly, I'm a bear of little brain, just like Winnie the Pooh. And for me, juggling all the different aspects of HMOs in my head was a challenge. And I found that by breaking down each of those steps and systemizing each of those steps, it made it much easier for me to rinse and repeat. And in 1 year, we created about 7 HMOs. And you can imagine if you've got 7 different projects all going on simultaneously. A couple of them were in the buy process, some of them were in the refurb process, 1 or 2 of them were in the filling them process, and a couple of them we were systemizing to future-proof and create hands-free income. When you've got all of that going on, if you don't have a system, it becomes a total nightmare and your life becomes a mess. So I found that just breaking everything down step by step was very, very easy then for me to understand where my properties were in each step of the system, and I could then manage them much more effectively. Sarah, great question. Where do you get the money to refurb? So there are different sources where you can use money to refurb. And one of the first sources that I know a lot of people use is to get a personal loan from the bank. Just go to your bank and ask to how much money you can borrow for a property refurbishment project. You can use money on your credit card. You can get 0% credit card. So you can borrow money very, very cheaply these days. On my 7-bed HMO, where I ran out of money, I borrowed money from a family friend. I ran out of money and I needed another £30,000 to finish the project. And by doing the maths, by understanding the return I was going to be making, I realised that I could pay this person 7.5% on their £30,000. I'd still make money on the project and they'd get a great return on their finance. They thought it was a great deal because at the moment their £30,000 was giving them 0.5% return in the bank. I thought it was a great deal because I got my money to finish the project, so we were all happy. So there's lots of different ways you can find money to do refurbishment projects. Money will come when you set your stall and decide this is the direction you want to go in. Yeah, thank you, Ian. Tesco loan for 3%. Lots of different ways to do it. So let me answer some of the questions about that 5-step HMO process. So we've talked a little bit so far about the Aspire model, how you can make money that will replace your income from property. But how can you do this using HMOs? Well, the first step is to find it. And I break down my finding it into 5 different areas. Master your market, analyse your area, scout to source, prepare the project and decide on the deal. Now, I haven't got time tonight to go into this in great depth. I'm going to share with you a little bit more about it. When you come on our HMO, Get to Know HMO days, we will go into this in much greater depth. So you'll understand all the different steps to this first step of finding the property. But let me give you a few hints and tips tonight anyway. So the first one is you want to be looking for some certain parameters around your macro location. Now, when I talk about a macro location, I'm talking about a large town or a conurbation, usually that has more than about 75,000 people. So in terms of the population, you're looking for an area that's larger than about 75,000 people. You want an area that's got good transport links to the wider area. And you can see here, I've put a little map here of Stoke-on-Trent. And Stoke-on-Trent is a great example because it ticks all the boxes when it comes to HMOs. But Stoke-on-Trent is by no means the only city around the UK where you can invest in HMOs. There's loads and loads of areas where you can still invest in HMOs and make a great income from them. You want, ideally, for that town or city to be within 20 miles of another equally large conurbation. And this is why Crewe started to work for us, because Crewe's population is about 75,000 people, but it's a town rather than a city. And so we started to move also into Stoke-on-Trent because we found that when Stoke-on-Trent was not doing so well, Crewe was doing well. And when Crewe was doing well, Stoke-on-Trent wasn't doing so well. So it kind of balanced itself out. And I think that's a good way to hedge your investing. Now, Charles asked a really good question about Article 4. So for people who don't know, Article 4 is a planning restriction. And if you are going to create HMOs, mostly you'll be able to do it through something called permitted development. So you'll take a property which is normally it's called C3, that's the planning class is C3, and you'll turn it into an HMO. And if it's got 6 bedrooms or less, it will be a C4. Now, in many areas of the country, you can do that without a problem under permitted development. But if your area has got Article 4, then you will have to get planning permission. Now, that doesn't mean to say it's impossible to do it, but it just means to say that you have to be aware that there may be some difficulties. You may have some obstacles. So, Charles, I would suggest for your first investment, avoid an Article 4 area. That's what I would say. And there are some great areas just outside of Manchester, you know, on the east side of Manchester, North Manchester, that's outside of Article 4, where this will still work. A couple of other things. I think you need to be looking at what facilities are available to tenants, what kind of availability there is for shopping, for retail, for leisure, and so on, but also what kind of employers are in the area. Download the local plan. The local plan from your local council is really helpful to understanding what developments are going on in the local area. And the great thing about understanding that is that you can also see where the new road developments are happening. You can see where the new industrial areas are taking shape. You can see exactly where the local council is putting money in for further regeneration and development. So that's really helpful. Sarah, can I come to your question at the end? If the council puts an Article 4 in with an existing HMO, I'll talk about that a little bit later on, if that's okay. Supply and demand, you need to be looking to see how many tenants are looking, what's the demand for rooms, and also what are your competition like? One of the things I realised was it was going to be quite easy for us to invest in HMOs and to improve on what's happening, because I saw some of the awful rooms that were on offer. So if you can see there's improvement that can be made, then this could be a great strategy for you. Now, when we go down into the micro area, this is a much smaller area of probably a few streets. And you can see from the map view I've put on the slide there, we're talking about maybe 10 to 15 streets. So in that micro area where you're looking to invest, look at entertainment, coffee shops, takeaways, those kind of shopping areas that tenants need and like. If you've got a local Aldi or a corner shop or a Sainsbury's local, these shops work really well near to an HMO. The HMO works well because you've got a local little shop that they can go buy some milk or bread or what have you. Mukesh, I'll come to your question now. On your local council, they will have something called a plan. It's called the local plan. And the local plan is the council's strategy for the local area. And within that local plan, which they revise every 4 or 5 years, they have to lay out what they think they will support in terms of development in the area. So if you, for example, went to Cheshire West website and just typed into the search panel local plan, it should come up, hopefully it will come up, and you could download that and then you could read that, and that will tell you what the local council, what the local authority are doing within that region. And that's very useful information to know. Going back to the micro area then, as you can see, there's a few other things. Look at health provision. What are the dentists, doctors, etc. in the area like? I would avoid buying a house on double yellow lines. Now that may seem like a really strange thing to say. The reason is because if it's on double yellow lines, it's because it's a busy road, and you'll often use the front reception room as a bedroom, and that can be off-putting for people if it's a very busy road. And the second thing is, although generally tenants don't have cars, some of them do have cars, and if they can't park, it might put them off. So I would say for your first few HMOs, trying to avoid double yellow lines and avoid Article 4. I haven't seen many councils yet applying council tax on a per room basis. I think you might see that happen a little bit more in the future. I think there are ways around it, Farhad. I think that there are ways in which you can mitigate that. And again, I think that's something we'll probably talk about next week, actually, in a bit more detail. It's a very good topic. Let me just share with you a story of Ella. So I was working with Ella a couple of years ago, and Ella is from London, but she bought a big property in Wirral, and this is what she did with her very first HMO by following the system. She purchased it for £65,000. It was in quite a rundown, bad state, so she spent £65,000 on the refurb, which was enormous at the time, and I wasn't sure if she'd done the right thing. And in fact, it didn't get valued up much more than what she spent on it. So it's a bit of a warning lesson for her, because she had to leave in about £30,000 on this project, which is not ideal. However, there's always an upside. There's always a bonus to the downside. Her rental income per month is £2,470. Her expenses are £1,100. So she's making between £1,300 and £1,400 a month profit. So let's take that in context. Yes, she's had to leave in £30,000 to the development, which is a lot of money. But if you were making £1,300 to £1,400 a month profit, it would only take you 2.5, 3 years to make that money back. Now that is a fantastic return on investment. And as you can see here, it's a 45% return on investment. There are ways in which you can backfill the money you leave in. If you have to leave in money to a project, there are ways in which you can do that. That means it isn't your money. Here are some photos of her HMO as well. She's finished it to a lovely standard, and you can see why it rents out and why it does so well. Brilliant, Robbie, really good question. Let's talk a bit more about finance, if I'm coming to that slide now. I think you're right that investing in areas like London or Cambridge, they have upsides and downsides. There are other areas, I think, where we're seeing some capital growth, so you're right, they're becoming increasingly expensive. But generally what happens is rents follow capital growth. So I'm not too worried about rents keeping up with capital growth. There's always a lag though. I mean, I've been investing in property for 20 years and I've always seen a lag. And yeah, I think in terms of, let's look at in more detail about commercial valuations, we can get into that in a bit more detail. And I'm really glad that we'll be meeting you in Southend. Thank you ever so much for coming along. That's going to be a great day, I know. So we'll get into that in a bit more detail then. Let's talk a little bit about funding it then. So the funding it part of the strategy, you've got to think about your means. Where is the money coming from? As Sarah said earlier, where are you going to get the money from the refurb from? You might have enough money to buy it, but where are you going to get the refurb from? Maths, does the deal stack up? Method, what if you're working with an investor? How are you going to work together? How are you going to make it so it's worthwhile for you and for them if you're going 50-50 on the deal? How are you going to structure that deal? And how are you going to measure the outcome? So those four are the four aspects to funding it, all of which you need to think about before you leap in. Let me just tell you about Charlotte. So Charlotte came to me last year. She joined my mentoring program. She had no money. She had one property, which is her own home, and she really wanted to invest in HMOs. I spent some time helping her to learn how to raise money from investors, and I took her through that step-by-step process. By following the system, within a fortnight, Charlotte had raised over £140,000 from an investor for her very first HMO. She completed the project. She has now got a 5-bed HMO, making her about £1,500 a month income. She's going through the process of refinancing that HMO, after which she will then be able to repay the investor. And I'm sure the investor will be so delighted that they'll want to do it again. So here's a case study of somebody who didn't have any money to start with. She had the belief, she had the determination, she had the application, and she made it work. And Charlotte is a mum of 3, and she already had another business. So Charlotte can do this, you can do it too. Step 3 in my 5-step process is finishing it. Now this is really about the refurb and the preparation to get the HMO ready so you can rent it out. So we split this into 3 phases: pre-build, specification and planning, refurbishment, fitting and kitting, decorating, and interior and exterior finishing. Now again, if you come on our Discovery Day, our Get to Know HMO, we'll go through this in more detail, and you'll have some tools to take away with you to help you be the perfect project manager. Now, when it comes to project management, if you've ever done any project management, you'll know that there are 3 aspects, which are time, cost, and quality. And these are the 3 aspects you need to manage on any build. If it takes too long, it costs you money. If the quality isn't good, then that will also incur expense long term. But of course, you have to manage the finances and manage the cost. So a few tips really to helping you work with builders. Really important, as in anything with your business, to have clarity. So as we said right at the beginning, with your aim as to how you're going to replace your income for property, you need to be really clear about what you want with your builder. So I would suggest you write a specification of works, and that you also have a really clear budget. and that you have a project plan. So you need those 3 assets when you're running your project. So the specification needs to include any building regulations or planning permission or licensing requirements, any of those requirements that have been stated by the council that you need to include in your spec. You need to agree your costs and timescales up front. Now, there's probably likely to be a bit of slippage, but if you've got a plan to work to, it's much easier to manage that. I would suggest you always get references for your builders, you check their insurance, you get a written contract, and you agree payment dates and stages and terms. All of those are key to being able to manage builders well. Mukesh, you put another question up. If you invest in property far away from where you live, how would you manage it for HMO? I think you've got to find an agent. And if you go on to our Facebook group, the Ultimate HMO Success System Facebook group, I have a download sheet that you can get in the file section, which is I think 20 questions to ask your potential HMO letting agent. So if you're trying to find a letting agent to manage a property for you, I would start there and use that as a way to kind of sift out the wheat from the chaff. So go to the in fact, Ian, if you're listening, could you put the link on the chat panel, please, to the Facebook group, and then Mukesh can go there and get that information. Okay, step 4 is fill it. So it's a very easy but straightforward process to filling a room, which really takes my 7 hours. You see by now that I like things to be simple and straightforward, so what are my 7 hours? Reach the tenant, respond to the tenant, reference the tenant, rubber stamp the tenant, take the rental income from the tenant on a regular basis, refund the deposit at the end of the tenancy, and review the process and review the room. I haven't got time to go into this in detail tonight. This is the step 4, though, for filling your rooms. And the difference it can make to your business is phenomenal by having a way in which you avoid voids and you keep your rooms filled. I think you've already seen that when you have an HMO that is even half full, it can still cover its costs, but it's not going to make you profit. And it's profit that will make you wealthy. Here is a case study from a lovely guy called Ethan, who I've been working with for the last couple of years. And Ethan was struggling to rent a couple of rooms in one of his properties. And as a result of Wendy's advice, he said, I made an extra £135 per week just on one property. He followed the 7-step system, and this in total amounted to an increase of over £7,000 in just 1 year. So in 1 year, he was making more than £7,000 just by following one part of the system, because he already had HMOs, but he just wasn't filling them effectively. So this is why I say that a system is really vital. And I think that one of the key areas that people need to learn is how to future-proof it. Last step on my 5-step HMO process, and it's the last one that I'm going to go into this evening before I share with you a bit more about how you can learn more, how you can do this, how you can make this happen for yourself. So there's 3 steps to future-proofing it: maintaining customers, maintaining the HMO, and maximising your results. So it's all about having a system. Future-proofing your portfolio is about having a system that saves you stress, time, energy, and money. Now, in order to do this, you'll need a team. You need a team to whom you can outsource as much as possible. It might be an agent. It might be an in-house lettings team. But by systemizing your processes, you can create a hands-free property business. For example, using an answering service like Answer for You, so that all our out-of-hours calls are handled by our out-of-hours answering service. Creating regular email messages for your tenants so they understand how to live in a shared house amicably and on a friendly basis. Being able to text your tenants regularly so that you're not just relying on email, but you can text them as well. These are all incredibly valuable tools that you'll learn when you learn how to future-proof your HMO. And this is one of the areas that I find a lot of other HMO training companies don't cover, the systemization part. And yet for me, I think I could speak for Ian as well, that had I not systemized my business, I simply would not be able to have the time that I have now to do what I love to do. And this is why a system works. This is why a system is so important, because this is what it does. It saves yourself time, stress, time, energy, and money. And that's really important. So just to reiterate, we've got 4 places left on Get to Know HMO this Saturday in Crewe. It's just £47 plus VAT. So please go to that link there at the bottom. Again, I'll paste it into the chat panel so you've got that there. So if this is a day which you know you need to start that path, this is a discovery day. So this will show you what the strategy is. This will help you to touch and see and feel a real HMO. You'll be able to ask myself and Ian lots of questions. And there's no commitment. There's no commitment afterwards. You might decide you want to do some more training and education, but if you don't, that's fine too. But we want to give people the opportunity to learn about this strategy, to see how powerful it is, and to understand how you can make this work for you. So just to remind you, it's a one-day event with a live tour. You'll understand the strategy in depth. We'll go through the 5-step system: find it, fund it, finish it, fill it, and future-proof it. So you understand that process. Any questions? We've got lots of questions coming up, and we'll have some time at the end for some Q&A, and you'll get some real case studies, and it'll help you to clarify what you now need to do to take action on your next steps. So very, very exciting. And people come away from the day saying they've just had a brilliant, brilliant day. We don't overload it with people. We actually only have a maximum of 10 people who we have, because we know that to give you great value and time, it's much better if we have smaller numbers. So it's not like 50 people on the day. I want to leave you with this thought. Today I will do what others won't. So tomorrow I can do what others can't. And if that's you, if that's something which you want to do, you want to change your life, you want to give up your job, you want to replace your income from property, yes, you look at that Aspire system again: aim, strategy, plan, interrogate, realise and evaluate. Use that strategy over and over again and make this happen. And if HMOs are the way to do it, then I'd love you to join us to learn more so we can help you with that strategy. The question is, what are you gonna do now? You see, you came on this webinar wanting to learn. You came on this webinar wanting to hear something. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it inspiring. I hope you found it really helpful in thinking through how you can make serious income from property. The question now is, well, so what? So what? So I'll remind you again about the Get to Know HMO Crewe. We do have another date in Southend. So I'll put those on the chat panel in a moment, because I think the, as I said, 12th is, I think it's the 26th of October. We haven't actually released that yet. If you're interested in the 26th of October in Southend, please let us know, and we will get you signed up for that one ASAP. Those tickets seem to go really, really. I don't know why people want to go to Southend and not to Crewe. I don't know why that is, but never mind. We would absolutely love you to be with us on those days, so you can discover exactly how to make this happen for you. Let me just recap then before we finish. So the Aspire model: aim, where do I want to get to? You've got that budget, so you can start to really identify how much money you need every month to make it happen. Strategy: how am I going to get there? Plan: what do I need to do to get there? And you've got the free bonus for staying on the webinar this evening. Thank you very much indeed, which is going to be your cash flow forecast. And you can use that to determine how much income you need every month. Interrogate: how can I make this happen? Realise: take action. And I'm going to share with you the action plan I use them with my mentees, I use them with my other clients to help people stay on course. You will get as a bonus tonight. And evaluate: what do I need to change if it is not going the way I need it to go? So I would like to say a massive thank you to you all for staying on to the end, to the bitter end, you might say. Oh, right, the link is not working to book the live tour. Right, okay, just 1 second. Let me get that up for you then. Sorry, Bob. So you probably see on your slides, you can see those bonuses will be emailed out to you. I'll get the live link from. Sorry, Bob, about this. I'm going to get the live link. I've shortened the link. Southend, we haven't released yet. So if you want the link to Southend, we haven't released that yet, Bob. It's only the link to Crewe at the moment, which is we've got the Southend link on the 12th of October is now full, so that'll be coming down. And the Crewe one is the only other one we've got live. If you want the Southend one in October, thank you for letting us know. We can set the page up and we'll get that going. We've literally only released that in the last 24 hours because of demand. So just to quick recap, you'll get your bonuses sent through to you. Thank you ever so much indeed for staying on this evening. Really appreciate it. It's been great to speak to you all. I'm happy to stay on the line. I've made Ian live now as well. Ian, can you hear me?
I can indeed. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. That's perfect.
I just wanted to say, Wendy, great content shared. And if anyone's sitting in the fence right now thinking about getting into HMOs, the best thing to do is come along to one of the discovery days. It really is a good eye-opener. It's how I kind of learned from the start, was going to look at other people's projects. Very, very valuable exercise. So I'd love to meet you in Crewe or in Southend. So if you're thinking about it, then just do it, as Nike says.
Yes, just do it. Love it. Okay, so Ian, we can stay on for perhaps another 5 or 10 minutes and take some questions, couldn't we now?
Of course, yeah, no problem.
So for those of you who need to go, it's your Sunday evening, you might want to go and spend some time with your loved ones. Thank you very, very much indeed for being with us this evening. We really appreciate your company. It's been lovely to have you on, and I know that Ian and I are really looking forward to meeting you. I know some of you are coming along to our Discovery Days in the next few weeks, so that's going to be fab. If anybody has questions, and there are a few questions coming through now, we can stay on and answer those. So thank you, Debbie. It'd be lovely to see you again. I can't wait to see you again. Thank you, Manoj. Great to see you. Thanks, Robbie. Really good. And Peter, thank you ever so much. So let me just answer some of the questions. Okay, so Sodrel, really good question. How do you check if an area is Article 4? The best way, again, is to go on your local council website and type in Article 4. And an Article 4 directive has to be made public by the local council, and they will normally do this via their website. So that's how you find out, through your local council. If it's not on the website, or it's not clear, phone them up. Phone up the planning department of your local council, and then they will tell you straight away. And the other question you should ask them is, what are the limitations? What's the physical boundary of Article 4? Because Article 4 has to have a physical boundary for it to be a legal directive. So it's worth you asking, what are the streets that it covers? Great question, thank you. Right, mortgageability. Okay, from Gemma, thank you. Do I need to evidence existing employment income, or can this be proposed rental income? That is a very good question, Gemma. And to be honest, the problem that I have in answering the question is that the mortgage market is always changing. So a few years ago, it was satisfactory to a bank to be able to demonstrate a business plan with proposed income and profit, and use that as a basis for getting a mortgage. Now, different banks have different policies. Different banks have different policies on lending. They have different policies on how much money they want you to leave in, because some actively want you to leave money in the project. The best answer I can give to you, because I'm not a financial advisor, is to speak to a mortgage advisor about it. And one of the people that I think should be on every person's team, on your power team, is a mortgage advisor, because the mortgage advisor's job is to keep up to date with current trends and knowledge of the marketplace and understanding what's possible and what isn't. So I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I think in your power team, if you've got a good mortgage advisor, you could talk to them about that. That would be really valuable and worthwhile.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a point on that, Wendy, if I can do. That was a good, excellent point. But yeah, what I would do is I normally just use a broker And what he asked for is a kind of synopsis, one-page document of where you are now. So then you send that to your broker and he'll review it and say, look, with this type of experience, I would place it with X, Y, and Z lenders, and then it just cuts out a whole load of time.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. Yeah, thank you. Great. Okay. Right. Now I know that Sarah is Sarah. You still on the line? I sent her to sleep because she was very good at sending me lots and lots of questions earlier on. But if she's gone, then I probably won't answer them. Although they were very good questions. Are you still on the line, Sarah? Can't see if she's still there or not. Okay, any other questions from people? I'm sure you've got some questions that you want to know about HMOs, and we'd love to answer them. Sarah, great. Okay, great. So Sarah sent me some questions. So Sarah, do you mind if I go through your questions now? So a few questions about licensing you have. So what happens if Stoke-on-Trent Council removes the license to have HMOs in Stoke? So licensing is a national requirement. It's a mandatory requirement from the government. So Stoke can't say, oh, we're not going to have licenses anymore. They can't do it. They have to. There is a mandatory need to have a license. However, some councils add what's called additional licensing on top of that. Now, Stoke hasn't done that, and not many councils have actually done that. So in most areas now, if you have a 5-bedroom HMO, you will need a license. In fact, sorry, in all areas, that's the minimum, is 5 bedrooms. And those bedrooms have to meet minimum room sizes as well. So that's now another consideration. And this is why I always say, make sure you know about the legislation and the regulations before you jump in, because you could buy a house that's not got the right room sizes and then you're really scuppered. So hopefully that answers your question on licensing. I'll talk to you about your situation personally later. I won't get into that publicly here. I would suggest that 5 bedrooms would get you to £1,000 a month profit. Again, it all depends. It depends on the rental area. It depends on your rental area. It depends on what you can rent those rooms out for. 6 would be safer, because then it means that if one person isn't in the property, then you'll still be making a steady £1,000 a month. But I've known some people make £1,000 a month for 4 rooms, because each of the rooms is really high quality ensuite rooms with lots of other beautiful surroundings, and they make £1,000 a month on a 4-bed. So it really all depends on the standard that you're providing, the size of the rooms, the other services, and the area. So 1k per property is, yes, that's what I'm talking about, net income. So after all the costs, the mortgage, all the utility bills, council tax, then it's 1k per month. That's what we aim for. Letting agencies, so variety of costs. I've heard as little as 8%. There's a company that I heard of the other day who rents properties out for 8%, which I think is very low. And we have a letting agency. We charge 15%. So yes, don't fall off your chairs. We do charge. Yeah, absolutely, because we know the time and effort it takes to run an HMO, so we charge a reasonable rent. By the way, you don't have to use us. That's fine. But yeah, we charge a significant amount more than some do. I think the average is between 12 and 15%. That's what I would suggest for an HMO letting company. And you want a specialist HMO letting company, because otherwise they could easily miss some of the key parts of regulation. And the last thing you want to do is lose your license because your lettings agency hasn't done the correct checks. Yes, would you make a similar amount by having buy-to-lets? Well, you could have a portfolio of buy-to-lets, but you'd have to have more properties. And I think that's the one thing I just like about HMOs, is that you can leverage the size of the property and get more income from it. I think you make more money by having a few HMOs than you would by having lots of buy-to-lets. The other downside, of course, is that you've got 3 properties, you've got 3 boilers. With 7 properties, you've got 7 boilers. And we've got some buy-to-let properties as well. And if the tenant moves out, and then it's maybe another few weeks before a new tenant moves in, you've got a whole chunk of time where you've got no income, but you've still got to pay the insurance, the mortgage. That's probably about it. You haven't, or sometimes the council tax though. Nowadays the councils are asking for council tax. So actually, you know, HMOs gives you much steadier income. So there's a few other questions there, Sarah, but I think those other questions we'll be able to answer on our day together, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing you on next Saturday. So I'm going to leave those other questions for now, if you don't mind, because they're a bit more detail, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Can I just make a point, Wendy?
Go ahead, yeah, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for anyone that doesn't know me, when I wanted to leave my job back in 2011/2012, I needed a dozen buy-to-lets to replace my income. And after 6 months of trying to do one buy-to-let, I thought it's going to take me forever. So I invested fairly quickly into HMOs, and obviously I replaced my salary with 2 HMOs as opposed to needing a dozen buy-to-lets. So I guess it's down to your individual circumstances. If you want to replace job income fast and have multiple streams of income, then that's why we love HMOs, Wendy, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Now, Ian, you also have a couple of other strands to your business, haven't you? Because you also do serviced accommodation and you've done some rent-to-rent as well. Are you able to very, very sort of briefly tell us a little bit about your background, about your experience there?
Yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I've been investing in SA since August 2015, and that is a cracking strategy. In the summer, it really... is a fantastic cash flowing strategy, and in the winter it's a little bit quieter. What I find with HMOs, it's a more steady cash flow across the whole 12 months of the year. To give you an example, to give some of the listeners tonight an example of one of the deals I'm involved in at the minute, it's an HMO, it's a minimo, so it's going to be 4 bedrooms. It doesn't require a licence, and it's on a rent-to-rent strategy. So if you don't know what rent-to-rent is, a very quick overview is I'm effectively renting the property from the landlord and guaranteeing their rent for a period of 3 to 5 years. Then I'm renting out the rooms separately, and obviously the difference between what I take in and rent and what I pay the landlord is the profit. And you can get into that with little kind of start-up capital, and you don't need a lot to get your cash flow going. So that particular property I've just spoken about will make £700 net cash flow per month. So, with that, you wouldn't need many of them to replace your salary. So that's like 8,400 a year. So if you've done that 10 times, rinse and repeat, you'd be on 84 grand, which is nearly 4 times the average UK salary. Just some food for thought.
Very powerful, isn't it? Very powerful. Right, okay, couple more questions and then I think we'll probably finish. By the way, I have just made that 26th of October event live. So there is the link there. So I'm just thinking about Bob. If you would like to book Bob, it's now live. I will send that out as well with the end of the webinar. Okay, Sue, do I put en-suites in our rooms? No, but we might put a mixture in. We tend to sometimes say in a 6-bed HMO we put in 4 en-suites and 2 non-en-suites. So there's a bit of a mixture. We have got houses where we've got full en-suites, and then we've got others where we haven't got any en-suites at all. So it kind of all depends on the layout of the house, the size of the rooms, and who we're aiming for, who we're looking to rent those rooms to. Scott, not to worry, didn't get around to booking the 12th of October, can't make the 26th. We'll probably run some more in Southend. We haven't got any more released at the moment. We have got some spaces for crew. As you can see, I'm plugging crew like crazy because it'd be nice to get a few more people onto crew. I think we've got 6 people on crew so far. So we've got some more places available there. So if you can make it next Saturday, yes, you may have to organise your life, childcare and other things, but it's going to be well worth it. And I think that for you to have clarity and purpose and understand what this is all about, will give you a great day. You'll love it. And by the way, lunch is included. Lunch is on us, so you don't have to even worry about bringing food. We're going to sort that out for you all. So, really looking forward to seeing those of you next week who are coming to our event. So, unless there are any other questions, and I'm sure that some of them we can answer on our live events anyway, let me just say another massive thank you to you all for coming. I know Sunday evening it's quite a bit of a stretch to come and learn this strategy, but I hope you got a bit more of an idea about how to go about replacing your income now from property. Ian, thank you ever so much for your participation tonight. It's been really great to have you on. And I know we're going to have a great day next Saturday. I can't wait.